performing Olga Zilberbourg's story, A Moment of Weakness, Danielle Levin.
A moment of weakness. Vasya enters the doorway of the building where his father lives, and a gust of unforgiving August wind shoves him deeper inside, sending him with a twister of wet maple and poplar leaves. Vasya pauses in the vestibule to shake the water off his cap and the collar of his jacket. A stranger, on his way out of the building, whose face Vasya doesn't have time to notice, but whom he doesn't believe to be one of the neighbors, bumps into Vasya, steps on his foot. Hapless descendant of a glorious family. Everything is going against him. The entire world has conspired to mark with pain every moment of his existence. Fuck! Watch where you're going! And you could have at least said sorry! The perpetrator's long gone and the outside door locks shut again. Vasya's curses don't even reach the intended recipient. It's enough to make a man want to lie down on the floor and never get up. Lie down. Right here. Between the two doors. On the dirty rag. Right on top of the rotten old leaves that are sticking to it. So that everyone who comes and goes would have to walk over him, would have to wipe their feet off on his belly. Lie down! Do it now. Maybe then they'll wince. Will furrow their brows. Will feel something. A part of his pain. The disgusting way they've been treating him all along. Vasya has a flair for tragedy. It'd be surprising if he didn't, seeing how his own family is treating him. Vasya's father, for example. He didn't invite Vasya here to drink tea or to discuss philosophical implications of recent trends in music composition. No, he doesn't treat him like a peer or even a student. And Vasya has had years of musical training, even if, at the end, he wasn't good enough to pursue piano or composition as a career. Vasya's father doesn't acknowledge Vasya's erudition or wit. He doesn't care about Vasya's inner life. What he needs from Vasya is a chauffeur to drive him to the conservatory and back, or to the doctor's office and back. Or he wants Vasya to drive his stepmother somewhere, wants Vasya to help his half-sister with her homework, or to take her from school. Wants Vasya to fix his computer, or refrigerator, or toilet. Wants Vasya to take a few books and mail them to his other half-sister in New York. Wants Vasya to do one of the million things Vasya doesn't want to do, and hates doing. Vasya's everyone's errand boy. Nobody cares to ask his opinion about it, consider his feelings. The stairwell in Vasya's father's apartment building is the only place in Vasya's life where he can truly pause and think about the sad way his life is going. Once, probably before the revolution, it was a grand stairwell. Granite steps, painted ceilings, tall windows between the flights, and only 2 apartments per landing. Vasya can see the hooks where the gilded candelabras had been hanging. An elevator was a grand new luxury back then, but now when it's become a necessity, how can anyone expect Vasya's 82-year-old father to march up and down 10 flights of stairs every day? It barely works. 2 days out of every week. Now you can barely guess the granite underneath a coat of mud. The walls are painted bog green. The windows have not been washed in decades, and the light they let through is barely enough to keep the geraniums on the windowsills alive. Vasya perches himself next to the geraniums, between the 2nd and the 3rd floor, and lights up a cigarette. Vasya's life is clearly going nowhere. By day, when he's not running errands for his father or stepmother or his half-sisters, Vasya sells computers, printers, copy and fax machines. And by night, when he's not running more errands for his mother and her husband, he drinks with his friends in bars and late-night cafes. avoid going home to his wife and daughter. It's not that he doesn't care about his wife and daughter. He just can't abide more people needing stuff from him all the time. When he was getting married, he thought it'd be nice if he had somebody taking care of him, helping him for a change. If he brought his paycheck home and spent nights at home, what more could his wife possibly require? But that's not how the marriage turned out. He has a poetic soul, Vasya. He has a heart and mind of a true poet. The music of poetry is always with him, and love, the true essence of a poem, comes his way easily. There are always women around him, always longing and lusting after him. Just the other day, he took a client out to lunch. She asked him to go out with her to a nightclub. During the meal, she insisted on trying his food. Put her hand on his knee or shoulder whenever he made a joke. He would have pursued that relationship, why not? But that evening, his aunt called. She'd been feeling a little low, and at 63, she should have known better, but she decided she wanted to skate. So she went to the neighborhood skating rink, fell down, and injured her arm, sprained or broke it. In any case, she needed Vasya to take her to the hospital. His family is always tugging him in all of these different directions. Everyone always wants help with the most mundane things. Not a single moment free to himself, no time to think, and certainly no time to put his thoughts down on paper. Here he sits, in the shadow of the brown sky, on the windowsill beside the wilted geraniums, and drops his ashes in a glass jar that the neighbors put up for this purpose. He sits here and tries to come up with the first line of a poem he would write. Make-believes. August. Slipping away. There's no reward in this life for good deeds, no prize waiting for him at the end of the road. His father's apartment, for example. Surely there is no family member more deserving to inherit his father's apartment. To think that the apartment belonged to Vasya's grandfather, a famous pianist, who used to give private concerts in these very rooms to the most celebrated musicians, poets and artists of St. Petersburg. Bloch used to come here at one time, and so did Anna Akhmatova. By all reason, this apartment is Vasya's birthright, but here, too, fate itself interfered. Fate itself has been working against Vasya. In the 1920s, after the revolution, his grandfather had voluntarily given the apartment over to the public authority to help solve the housing crisis, and in exchange was allowed to keep 2 rooms in the front of the building. These 2 rooms were where his father lived, where Vasya was born. But is Vasya going to inherit these 2 rooms after his father dies? No, never. Vasya is only good enough to be an errand boy. He and his mother were kicked out of here when Vasya was barely 6 years old and had to move in with Vasya's mother's parents in their crummy apartment in the proletarian housing block. And his father immediately replaced the 2 of them with Vasya's stepmother, a woman of impeccable stature, a woman who worked with Vasya's father at the conservatory, who was closer to him in age and educational background, but still young enough to bear him 2 daughters. Vasya's mother had been more than 20 years younger than his father and mortally afraid of him. He was only too happy to get out of the way. Now the apartment. The apartment that should have been rightfully Vasya's will go to his ungrateful replacements. Blasted apartment. That's not really the apartment that Vasya cares about. It's the principle of the thing. The fact that there's nothing that his father has given Vasya after giving him birth, not 1 ounce of love, not anything. Her shyness and steps out onto the landing. Vasya, she says, you shouldn't smoke, it's not good for you. What do you know, you little monster, Vasya growls. You don't even know what 2 + 2 is. Going to visit your father? The little girl asks. She's holding onto the door handle with both hands and puts her entire weight on it, swings out into the hallway and returns to her starting position. What the hell is she doing out here all alone, hanging out on the landing of the building where all kinds of people come and go? That guy who stepped on his foot downstairs, who was he? He looked suspicious. The girl isn't even tall enough to unlock the door to her own apartment. She had to use a chair for that. Clearly, she had been sitting for hours by the people, waiting for the adults to come home. Where are your parents? Your neighbors? Who is watching you? I'm gonna go practice the piano. The little girl says and disappears into her apartment. She pulls the door closed behind her, but leaves it unlocked. Vasya is listening for the sound of the bolt in the door, but instead he hears the piano. A Bach exercise. Vasya drops the singed filter into the glass jar and gets up. What had he been thinking about before he was interrupted? Some nonsense, no doubt. Some idiocy not worth remembering. What is he lingering here for? He needs to go up there to his father's to see what they need him for this time. And after he's done with whatever that is, he has to drive over to his mother's place because his mother and her boyfriend had gone away on vacation and he'd sworn he'd water her plants and he hasn't made it there in, what, a week? Week and a half? Vasya. Vasya. He is a busy man. So many people need his help. They depend on it. Of all the possible lives, he's living this one. There's no time for him even to smoke a cigarette in peace. There are plenty of people he can blame for this sad state of affairs, but there's hardly a point in that. Nobody hears Vasya. Nobody has any pity for them, for him, and not even the slightest opening for escape. So, stand up straighter, Vasya. Shake off the weight of tragedy. Walk up those stairs and do what needs to be done. But wait. Before you go to your father's, ring the little girl's bell. Make her lock that door behind her. There are all kinds of strangers who just walk into this old building. And it's always better to be safe than sorry.